And welcome everyone to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation that we sponsor here at Still and Moving Center every Saturday afternoon. It's a delight to have all of you for today's conversation, which is on climbing mountains. That kind of the symbolic aspect of climbing mountains. I'm so pleased to introduce you to somebody that I am doing the math on, and I think my husband Cliff and I know David Griffith, fondly known as DeGriff, for the last 40 years, when he was a 17-year-old rock climber in Santa Barbara, California, give or take about 4 decades. He was just like this whiz kid that would just zoom up these rock faces and leave everybody else with their jaw dropped watching him do this kind of balletic ascent of these sheer faces. And eventually he came to work for our company that was doing a lot of work on steep slopes. He did that in California. And then when we transitioned to Hawaii and have our current company, Prometheus Construction, he came over a number of times and did some amazing jobs, one of which was at Waimea Canyon, that probably all of you are familiar with. And he wasn't somebody who just was great at climbing the slopes himself. We designated him as our safety officer because it's a matter of how you do it and how you mitigate the risk, because it is a risky thing that is done. And we were having a lot of people on ropes that were ascending up the sides of steep faces to do the work that our company does. And so he helped to keep lots and lots of people safe. So I think that is really important for this topic of mountain climbing, and in specific, the aspect of it that Dave is an expert at is rock climbing. He is really so highly regarded for his skill, not only in performing it, but in the safety of doing so, that he trains Navy SEALs, and he continues to do so to this day. So Dave and I are going to start with a little kind of interviewing conversation, and then we'll extend it to the rest of you for a round table conversation. How does that sound? Good. Dave, can I kind of spring a question on you that I thought about after you and I talked before?
Sure.
Okay. So in Hawaii, being around a kumuhula, somebody who's, really traditionally trained in Hawaiian ways and thought, whenever someone comes to a sacred site, before entering that site, our kumuhula teaches us that we should always ask permission before entering. That's kind of the Hawaiian protocol and she does it in the form of chanting. She kind of waits for a sign of whether she feels welcome or she doesn't feel welcome. And then she will go ahead if she feels that there is a welcome. And I feel as if that kind of respect for the natural world might be something that you could tell us a little bit about from your perspective as a rock climber and as somebody who teaches other people to do something that is does have some risk entailed. But I think that your approach to it might be kind of akin to what I get from Hawaiian tradition. If you could move forward just a little bit, we'll hear you better.
Yeah, for sure. And I see this in showing respect for these things, and not only just the place, but the fact that we want to visit that place. So we need to see that. And I see this, and it's part of the human condition. Climbing rocks is like solving a puzzle. So you're trying to figure out how to do it. And I'll see so many times climbers will say, you know, oh, I'm just not doing good today. I'm not feeling good, or I'm not at my top form, or I didn't sleep well, or any of that. And I always think it's funny. And I'm all, well, you've come out here to choose this challenge for yourself, and you've chosen a difficult challenge, and you've come up with every reason why you can't achieve your goal other than respect for the stone. Okay, I found a worthy opponent, as Sherlock Holmes would say, worthy of my steel. And just give that to the stone, to the task. It is difficult, and it's not going to happen as easy as I thought. And I need to, you know, regroup. A lot of times with a cliff, you have to go back, eat food, sleep, come back, fresh body, and a more respectful thought. So when you come back to this cliff that next time, you go, oh, this thing really kicked my ass last time. And when you go into these challenges with that frame of mind, this is going to be hard. I need to rise up to it. I need to ask permission, so to speak. You know, are you going to let me get through this thing? And I'm going to give it everything I have, 100%. But you do get a feeling where this challenge or the cliff or the site is almost its own entity, and you're, you know, interacting with it in this way. And you know, we can always say, oh, it's all our choice, I didn't eat well, or that, or and come up with a million excuses. My shoes aren't fit. But you know, the truth is, you know, having that respect for, you know, the task or the site, like the Lions, you know. Yeah, so asking permission, just, and if we can just have conviction in our thought and everything in our life, we get into these situations, and if you feel like you're stuck in that situation and you have no choice, the task can be pretty daunting. Whereas if you remind yourself, I'm here because I chose to be here, I actively chose to come out. With climbing, it's easy, right? I got the money, I got gas in the car, I put the gear in the truck, we drove out here. It's pretty obvious that, you know, you chose to be here and you went through great lengths to get to this challenge. And it's so easy to forget and feel like, I don't want to be here, I just want this to be over. Which kind of brings me, you know, the biggest lessons I've got from climbing is, you know, we all want to achieve, we want to get better, we want to get stronger, we want to be richer, we want to be more liked. But when you get in these situations and these true challenges, the beautiful lesson is you'll get yourself into these situations and you'll say, you know, all I want is to keep everything I have. I just want to get back to the truck. I don't care if I complete this climb. I don't care if I'm, you know, good looking, anything. I just want to survive this situation. And it can really help you in a hard, loud volume way, realize that, you know, what you got is good. And that is really, you can appreciate that. Even if the truck doesn't start when you get there, you're just so glad that I'm glad with everything I have, and I have a great life, and I'm happy. And that's even if you failed in your task and all your gear is still tangled on the cliff, you get back and you have this true sense of well-being. And there's times when I'll be there and I just must be the happiest person on earth. And, you know, I haven't done anything. I haven't achieved anything except made it back to square one and gone, wow, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Super lucky.
And speaking of gear and respect for place, I think that's one of the things that I've noticed about you and more the generation of climbers that you represent is that I guess the old approach for climbing, which climbers would be banging these pitons into the rock.
Well, first, if we're going to go there, let me go right back to the start. And interestingly enough, the first documented professional climbers were Polynesians. Captain Cook wrote in his logs that he assessed that, 1500 years BC, the Polynesians had designated climbers, and they were a very valuable part of every society. What they did was, get the birds' eggs off the cliffs. And maybe they weren't using ropes and stuff, but definitely they had lines, because a basket of eggs you can't just put in your pocket. You got to, lower them or raise them to the other guys. And also, the Polynesians were the first seafaring people. So as far as rigging and boats and all the ropes and climbing knots and everything we use to protect ourselves in climbing, all is from mariners, right? The knot, the bowline knot, the figure eight. And here I'll see people teaching, oh, well, this is a multi directional, mechanical raising device. And you're all, dude, it's a block and tackle. I mean, every pirate ship had them. You put a couple pulleys and it's 3 ropes to 1. It's not that fancy, but we love to reinvent stuff and say we reinvent. And then, of course, climbing, always in military history, an elevated position is a strategic advantage. So as far as moving men and equipment, people and equipment up to an elevated position on a hilltop or something, build your castle there, you have an advantage. Now, recreational climbing goes back. I mean, there's written stories, in the 1700s of, people climbing, and I mean this recreational, right? There isn't any government survey or anything. They're doing it just for the fun and the love of it. And for 100 years, people just climbed. And when you saw the ropes were really only brought for an emergency retreat. So say we climb up something and we're climbing fine, and then it starts raining. Well, maybe you're not going to be able to climb down that wet rock the way you came up when it was dry. So they learned quick. We would bring these ropes for an emergency retreat, a safety valve, so to speak. When the first running belay was used, and I mean, one anchor connected to the cliff or mountain, and he's feeding out the rope. Once again, this is from mariners. All this rope craft was already invented, right? Renee, you go out to the jib sheet and get that thing that's flapping in the wind and secure it. I'm going to stay here at the main mast and I'll belay you. So you're on a rope. I'm at the main mast. I'm feeding the rope out as you go, bringing the rope in as you come back in case you get washed off the deck. Dude, I got you, right? So these techniques were already in use there, and they were just applied to the cliff. Now, when people started to do this, it was controversial. And many people said, you guys are cheaters, you're cowards, you're chicken shits. Now, if you make a mistake, the rope may catch you and you'll be okay. And you've ruined the sport. You've, of course, ruined the sport completely. And then slowly, the running belay became more accepted. So protecting the climber as they move up. And of course, as the first climber got to the top, he would secure himself and then he could belay, meaning tending the rope as the next people came up. And then decades later, people started going where they could no longer climb with their hands and feet with the rope just for protection. So you would pound a peg, and the pegs were even before the running belay, because you'd bring some pegs in case you had to retreat, and you'd hammer those in and retreat. But so then they would pound a peg and they would lower down and swing around, kind of like Peter Pan. I'm sure you've seen it. They call it a pendulum move. And so you present your weight to the rope and you swing back and forth till you could get a grip and continue climbing again. This was highly controversial. Once again, and these are people who have grown up in their climbing using the running belay. But then they see the pendulum and they go, oh no, you guys are cheating. Now you're hanging on the rope. You're waiting the rope. You're not even climbing. You're swinging around. Now any circus freak can come and climb up a cliff, and you guys have ruined the sport. Completely ruined it. Now anybody can get up a cliff. So slowly over the decades, the running belay, of course, is accepted by everyone. The pendulum is now utilized to open up a lot of new climbs and becomes more regular use. And then the next thing is the climbers going, I can't move up and there's nothing I can swing to, but if I could just get, 50 feet above, I could be back in business climbing with my hands and feet. They would do that, and they'd pound a pin, and then you put some sling ladders, stand up in stirrups, like stirrups on a horse. You'd have several of those, and you walk up, pound a piece, place a piece of gear. And this was direct aid. And of course, I don't need to tell you, super controversial, right? So the people who accept the running belay and the pendulum now are, no, you can't just hang on the pins. Now, any ironmonger can go up there, steeplejack, and pound a piece of iron every meter and climb any cliff. You guys have ruined the sport, and you're complete chicken shits. You're not even climbing anymore. And then,
not to mention the rock.
well, sure, but I mean, mind you, in this thing, people are getting, killed by rockfall, killed by weather, killed by, the idea that the rock is vulnerable, would never cross your mind being in their situation up there. There's no doubt when you're up there, the mountain is not vulnerable. We are the soft ones. We're the little sponge creatures who can be crushed, right? The mountain just does its thing. But anyway, when that direct aid, when you're standing in the stirrups, that became accepted. So that was direct aid. And now that was what bore the term free climbing, which is back to just standard climbing with your hands and feet. The rope is only for protection, like a circus net if you miss your trick. And then aid climbing is when we use direct aid. And the pitons, the gear there wasn't that many participants. So, to develop, it wouldn't be lucrative to develop fancy climbing gear. So these climbers are all coming up with the tools and building them, most of them in their garages. Interestingly enough, the first carabiners, and then, there's little doubt on when those were first used, but, and everybody goes, oh, that's a carabiner, that's for rock climbing. But the story is it's about 1910, and these climbers are outside the pub, having a smoke, talking, and they see the fire brigade training. And they're putting out a fire they've started, and they're practicing. And these climbers, they noticed, man, all these fire guys, they got, their canteen has a little click, snap link, and their shovel's got a snap clink, and they're carrying this stuff on their belts and hanging off their packs. And they go to the fire guys after practice, they go, how strong are those things, those little loops you have? And they're all, oh, plenty strong. And they're all, would it hold the person? And they're all, oh yeah, it'll hold 3 persons. And so the climbers got some old carabiners from the fire guys, and with about 10 or 15 of those, the next day they went out and did this new first ascent, 800 meters, and they claimed there's no way you could have done this in one day without these things. And that was the carabiner.
So it's pointing to me, from what you're saying about something that we talked about before, is that any ascent that we make is very much dependent on others. that we, and if we look at this from more of a spiritual perspective, and we think of rock climbing or mountain climbing as, like spiritual climbing, I guess, doesn't it point to that idea that there are those who have gone before us that we're reliant upon in many ways? Yeah.
For sure. Even if you're doing a first ascent that no one's climbed before, we're stepping off the head and shoulders of all the people who wrote the books and kind of validated it. And like I said, the rope craft is from mariners. It's not even like I'm getting these, the climbers before me. No, it's like the guys who were just sailing boats before the climbers were getting that. And we got our carabiners from the firemen and of course, yeah, all the climbers before. And for me as a kid, when I started climbing, people thought it was insane, but for my mom, I had all this literature to show her that people were writing. I mean, here's this thing these guys wrote in, 1825 about this climbing ascent. And she would read it. And of course, they were flowery writers, eloquent, beautiful descriptions. And it validated it for her. She's all, wow, this is a real thing. He's not just, made this up on his own. This is a tradition and there's a legacy to it. And he's learned about the history of it, and there's a history, and when she saw there was so much more to it, she was a little bit more on board with, me participating.
Right. I can imagine.
So, yeah, when as soon as you see, oh, this is a thing that's handed down, a legacy handed down by ancestors, whether they're our blood ancestors or not, they're, other humans have done these activities, and climbing is just this, has been passed down through all those regions. And, almost everything we use is very few pieces of gear that we have were designed just for rock climbing.
Right. Well, this is Gems from the Wisdom Traditions. And what you're talking about is a tradition that goes farther back than a lot of us probably ever realized. There are lots of questions that I could go into, and I instead think I'll just tell you what some of them are, whichever, and then I do want to open it up for others of us. Sort of that idea of visualizing, allowing us to make our ascent, and if we don't have some sort of sense of vision, how difficult it is. Also, what happens when you fall? It's another question I have. And another one would be, is one of the analogies to climbing a mountain, and like different spiritual traditions all have their different paths. And we all may be going up the same mountain, but there's so many paths to get there. And I imagine rock climbing might be like that too. So those are some general thoughts that I wanted to potentially pursue with Dave, but I want to open it up to everybody else and see what you might want to ask him and what comments you might want to make on this general topic of mountain climbing and looking at it from a symbolic perspective.
I really appreciated your talk because when I think of rock climbing, it feels like life and death. Seeing these people go up these high mountains, and what I was taking from what you said was there is a vision, but then you go and you have to prepare yourself. It's not like you just don't do anything or lift weights or whatever you do to get strong enough to do that. It takes a great deal of strength. So it's preparing yourself, and then you have a vision that you're working toward. And then what I heard you say that when you get there, it's like asking permission. And, is it okay for me to do this? And for me, my words would be asking permission to the universe and also to the rock or whoever you're around that it's okay to move forward. And I thought one of the interesting things is I chose to be here. And I think sometimes we feel in situations when we're faced with something difficult is, I don't want to be here and this and that. But what I heard you say was when you really choose to do it, there's a different way that you come at it than already thinking that you can't do this, or it's, I don't want to be here. It's a different attitude as I chose this, and how do I do this to the best of my ability?
Yes. And you erase that potential in your mind saying, I don't want to be here, the moment you ask for permission.
Yeah.
Right. You can't
have to own it.
Ask for permission to go somewhere and then get in there and go, I don't want to be here. You asked.
Yeah.
So.
And I was thinking, because then you said there's a sense of well-being and gratitude afterwards. And I thought, after we finish the rock climbing, there is a sense of gratitude, but there's also, I think there's something about facing our fears, our death, or a mountain that we didn't think we could climb, or do something that we didn't think that we really wanted to do. And that it's like really acknowledging what it takes inside of ourselves to choose to do that and to be guided to do that. And that we are not alone, that there are other people around us and helping us. and that it evolves from not just your discipline, but all disciplines. And I think all of our journeys, no matter if it's an inward spiritual one or a outward climbing a rock, I'd never climb a rock, but if that's what it was, it's like, it takes that kind of process. And I really appreciate it. I hadn't thought about that with rock climbing. And my grandson's starting to climb rocks. It makes me very nervous, but I'm having a lot of faith that he's going to do it safely. So thank you so much. It was a great talk.
Yeah. Well, and it's not safe. I mean, and in all of life, you know, you talk about fears, and we lull ourselves into this complacency by saying, oh, I'm in a safe place, or this is safe, or this, I can make this activity safe. Because what we want to keep in our mind is we want to be careful, but we can't be safe. I mean, truly, if you're alive, you're not safe. Anything, you know, helicopter could crash on top of my place right now. And so if we think that we're safe, or that we can create a safe spot, and I hear people say that, you know, we really want you to create a safe place here on the cliff for our kids. And I'm like, are you kidding? This is a brave space. This isn't a safe space. This is a, you know, you choose to get into this situation. You know, ask permission, so to speak. Whether you, and if in all of our situations, we gotta just, you know, remember, we asked to be here. We chose to be here. And this is going to help us be more efficient in the task. If we feel like we've thrown into it, I have to do this, I have to do that, you're not going into it with a very good attitude of having a good time. Even if it's a family get together, oh, I have to go to this family reunion. You know, oh my God, you just set yourself up for a poor time, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to, you get to. You have this opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And if we keep that, just that thought alone in the beginning of the task is going to be a reminder. Anywhere along the thing, when things get difficult, you're going to go, oh yeah, but remember, I chose to be here. I asked permission. This is an opportunity. Let me try and, you know, do the best I can. And then, you know, and even in these situations that are, like you said, they can be life and death. And hopefully you're aware of the moments that are more dangerous than others. For sure, you know, it's pretty obvious when you get yourself into these predicaments on a cliff, you know, this is way more dangerous than it was 20 feet below. I'm really into it. And maybe I should just think about gingerly climbing back to a position of safety or, you know, a little safer, being closer to where the rope is attached to the cliff. Your fall will be smaller. But with that frame of mind, I truly believe that any aspect you go into in your life, if you remember that and remind yourself, this is an opportunity. I don't have to be here. You know, oh, I have to go home. I have to go to work to pay the bills, to pay the kids. No, you don't. You get your truck, drive out and hang out with D. Griffith in the desert, and eat cans of chili. You don't have to do that. You get to do that. You know, you have your wife and kids, or your, you know, whatever it is, your work, your things. You chose to get those, and that's an opportunity. You're there because you want to be. If we start thinking, oh no, I have to do this, or I have to go here, you're just setting yourself up to not perform in the most efficient manner that you could.
I haven't ever thought of rock climbing or mountain climbing as anti-victim mentality. I mean,
Oh
avoid like the plague.
yeah.
David, I saw your hand up, and then I think maybe Carol Ann.
Yes. Awesome talk. Thank you, Dave. Particularly responded when you mentioned that these may not be our blood ancestors, but they are, in fact, our ancestors of the human family. And I just love being reminded of that at every moment, that it's not about us versus them. It's we're all here together. And then, of course, Diana just took the words right out of my mouth about, as she does many times, about gratitude and this sense of accomplishment. When you mentioned about you really did nothing, but you made it back home safely, I just felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude for for Spirit having delivered you back safely in one piece. But then it also spawned this idea about, and then you referenced it. I remember one of my teachers, she had up on the wall a picture of a sailing ship, and it said, "Ships in a harbor are safe, but that's not what ships are built for." And so, really appreciate your talk and just your approach, and this whole idea of opportunity, challenge, and choice is a very rich environment to simmer in right now. And I think for now I'm complete. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Carol Ann, did I see you move towards raising your hand?
You did. So I really went into your talk with this idea that this is a sport. And I think I've kind of changed my mind on that, because I heard a lot about bravery and courage and the idea of making choices and determination and resilience. And as David and Diana referenced, accomplishment and gratitude. And those are all things that I attribute to a genuine mindfulness practice, something that brings you closer to yourself more than anything else. And so I'm grateful for the insight. So just much gratitude to you.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because when we get in those mindfulness, presence of mind, and when the teachers talk about meditation, which is when you get to this enlightened state where you're just separate from everything, but it's before you can go there, you need to be present in the moment. And a lot of people talk about yoga these days. Oh, I do yoga, you do yoga. But talking to the the sadhus in India and stuff, we would have these conversations, and they would be all, "Oh, you practice yoga?" And I'd be all, "No," and they'd be all, when we talk about it, they'd go, "No, what you're talking about is asana." And asana is these body movements. And they came up with those because they're all, "Oh, you want to meditate to reach enlightenment? Well, first you need to be present in your body and where you are." And these teachers would look and they go, "Well, first thing we need to do is fix your body." You need to balance and strengthen these muscles. And then, so you do these asana exercises and strengthen your body, stretch your body. And then you can be present, meaning your body is all flowing. Now I can sit here and I hear the fly buzz by. I can hear the wind in the trees. I notice things because I'm present and I'm aware in this moment. And this can be so difficult to achieve. And that's why, the masters came up with these different poses and these exercises to get us present. Mindfulness, where are you? What are you doing? Just think about this right here where we are, this moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not what's going to happen or what could happen. Just boom, what is here, right here with us and around us. And in climbing, it's really easy because you're on the side of a cliff, hanging on by your fingertips. It's really hard to worry about if the deck needs to be stained or what chores you need to do. It just zeroes you right in to that mindfulness thing. It just forces you into it. There's no getting away. I need to focus and think about what I'm doing right here. And you're, maybe looking for these minute regosities, these little irregularities on the cliff, and thinking, how can I use those? So you're looking at them and thinking, and like Renee was saying, and use them together to create a puzzle. So it forces you into this mindfulness, and if you've never tried it, even in just a mellow cliff, you'll be surprised. It just zeroes you in and you just begin to focus. Interestingly enough, a lot of the accidents that happen in climbing, they don't happen when we're climbing. A lot of them happen when you're retreating. So you've got to the top of the cliff and now we're going to rappel down or slide down the rope. Well, it's much easier. Your weight's on the rope. All you're doing is feeding the rope through your device and you're walking backwards down the cliff. It's all of a sudden in the middle of this day, here's a moment where I could let my thoughts stray. And believe it or not, one of the biggest killers is people rappelling off the end of the rope. And it's because in a long day of mindfulness, you just grasp at this moment to take a break. But you think about it, if you guys don't climb, you're sliding down a rope. There's only two things you should be thinking about. You're holding the rope. Do I have enough rope to continue rappelling? And where do I put my next foot? There's two things. Like, I don't know what else you could possibly want to think about while you're up there, but it's an amazing thing. And an instructor told me when I was learning as a kid, they said, we've been using ropes and carabiners for 100 years. And in the last 60 years, no one's invented a new accident up here. We kind of keep making the same mistakes over and over. Mind you, I mean, if the rock falls apart and avalanche or rock fall kills you, there's nothing you can do about that. And that's probably the only really acceptable death in the mountains or on a cliff or a mountain that there is. Everything else has been pilot error. But we don't think about that. It's kind of like going surfing and thinking about shark attack. You can't think about that. You're not going to catch any waves if you're worried of that.
But also, Dave, you are very mindful in terms of where you choose to climb, so that you climb in places that minimize the probability of crumbling rock.
Sure, or you'll notice, you probably see me climb a lot, Renee, and I won't wear a helmet. Oh, he doesning wear a helmet. He doesn't wear a helmet. Well, when I walk up to a cliff that's large or has loose rock, boom, you'll see the pictures. I won't be wearing a helmet. So, take appropriate measures when you think that might be a factor. But lately in my life, and I say this lately, I mean in the last few decades, I've been trying to practice that mindfulness full time. Meaning the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I'll brew coffee. So there's an old samurai saying that says, whether you're in a fight to the death or you're brewing a cup of tea, the focus should be the same. Meaning that mindfulness, and you've probably seen in the little ceremonies, will do it in the folding, and everything's done so perfect. And it's this mindful, okay, all I'm doing is making a cup of tea, but I'm going to focus on it as though it was the most important thing in the world. So when I'll wake up, I'll try and think of that. Let's start my day off being mindful. I'm going to, grind the grinds, and I want them just perfect, right? And you can never get it perfect, but too much like gravel and you got watery coffee. And if you grind it too much like powder, it's like mud. So first you try and get the grinds perfect, and then pouring the hot water. I'll really try not to spill, and just thinking about this. And if I truly believe that if I start my day in this sort of mindfulness thing with the first steps over to start the water heating, and I focus on that as if the most important thing in the world and it's the only thing I'm doing, it really helps me be in that frame of mind all day. And when I get behind the wheel of the car, when I go to the school to get the gear and look at the list of the roster, the people I'm teaching or whatever, and I'm putting the boots in all the way through the day, I can just maintain that, because it's not like, like the people rappelling to rappel off the end. Oh, now I can just relax and not be mindful. Well, you're still alive. You're on earth. This mindfulness should be 100% all the time, whether you're in a fight to the death or making a cup of tea.
I'm looking at a quote in the Still in Moving Almanac. It says, the need to climb comes from that tough lonely place of searching for your dignity. You know, that place where we actually choose to confront our own weaknesses and fears, where we rebel against the terror of death, is really about dignity. So I wondered, just a question about like egotism versus a sense of dignity. You know, like egotism, I did that, versus the dignity or some unconditional sense of self. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, yeah. For me, the beauty of climbing is, and like I said, we want to be better, we want to be stronger. Yes, we hold on to these things, how we perceive ourselves, or how we would like to be, how we would like to perceive ourselves. And so, in climbing, there's an equation, your ability and the difficulty of the task. It's like a math equation. Now, as humans, we're not going to be happy with the easy task. So I could easily go out here and climb and just pick climbs I know I can do. And I can pick climbs that are so mellow, I can do them, without a rope, no problem. I have no worries. But that won't satisfy me. And after a few days, I'm going to gravitate towards this thing that's more of a challenge. And if you play the game, you're going to bite off stuff that's more than you can chew. So, to be blunt, you're going to get your ass kicked. You're going to fail. You're going to fail miserably on this goal that you got in the car or you woke up thinking about. And if we take these tasks and we think that this is applied to me as a person, or same as if I say I'm a climber, and I'll make it clear to you guys, I'm a person who's been climbing most of my life. But I think as soon as we personify or label ourselves as something, it all of a sudden becomes serious. And now failures are this blow to the ego. Or as you could say, your perception of yourself. No, I want to succeed. I want to be strong. I don't want to be up here. I mean, sometimes you try these climbs and you're so tired, you couldn't crush a grape. You're so weakened and tired. And the only thing that, you'll learn is, and I guess dignity might be the word, but when you reflect on your behavior, how you've related to it, how you deal with the failure. For me, that brings up the dignity. So you really need to be okay with that. And a failure is just one more step closer to success, right? This is, okay, I know that doesn't work, or now I know I need to prepare this way a little more. I don't know, it could be anything. Maybe we need to bring more water next time. But we want to maintain that good disposition, whatever you call it. Yeah, dignity. Because you'll get in these situations and they seem so life and death that you just give up on that whole behavior, and you'll say absurd things. You'll, I don't know, cry like a baby, whine, whatever. And lo and behold, magically, maybe you survive, and then you're back and you look back at that experience and you go, gosh, I wish I just behaved a little better. I wish I didn't just, lose it like that. And you do feel like when you do lose it like that, you're all, gosh, I can fail so much, and you can still maintain the sense of dignity if you behave in a professional and rational way. And not just get up, give up, start crying, and we're gonna all die, and this is so terrible. And no, if just continue in style, keep your dignity. So it is a true test of it, because you're gonna be beat down, and there's times when you want to throw a tantrum, you just want to quit, you want to be lifted out of it, you wish you weren't there, and like I said, it comes down to, I just want to get out of this and keep everything I have, you know, get back to the life I started with. I don't need to be smarter, richer, or anything. So if we can focus on that, that our behavior is an important thing. And I think that's what, you know, I don't know if I'm hearing the word right, but for me, dignity is, yes, you go through these things and you just can maintain and not, forgive my language, but, you know, lose your shit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Caroline,
Yeah.
I think maybe this question could be put to almost anything we try to do in life. When you start climbing up a mountain, a slope, objectively, is there one right way to do it on that particular slope? And you have to find that right way. Or as you start up, are there alternative ways you could go up the slope? And you have to pick one, at least, and maybe you'll have to switch, but you'll pick one and say, well, I'm going to assume that this one is a way to get up the slope. There could be others. So is there choice? It's like when you're trying to help somebody, what should I say? Is there something I could say that would be the right thing to say? And so all your subjective activity merges with what's objective, or are there alternatives to how maybe I go a little bit more over to the right or to the left or whatever? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, and this is a thing I tell my students. You know, a lot of the beauty of these puzzles is there's multiple solutions. So you got this puzzle with multiple solutions. You want to find the one that fits you. And it could be even in staying in the same line. Of course, when you look at a mountain, you know, there can be ridges and gullies. Yes, there's many different ways to go. And on bigger cliffs, sometimes the more difficult way will actually be the safer way, right? Because if you're in a gully, that's where if rocks fall, they're going to probably come bouncing down there. Now we get out on this exposed arete or ridge. Oh, the climbing's more difficult, but if anything falls from above us, it's going to the side. And this goes, throughout climbing from big mountain to small boulder problem. There are multiple solutions, and even on the most difficult, if you go in and watch on YouTube of a few different climbers doing the most difficult route in the world, it may look to you like, oh yeah, they're grabbing the same things, they're doing the same things, but with a trained eye, you look and you go, oh no, he's doing a little different. Maybe it's different body English if they are using the exact same features. But yeah, this is the beauty of it. And sometimes I'll be on a cliff. And so we'll go to these climbs. And once again, free climbing is climbing with your hands and feet. If you fall on the rope or you weight the rope, it's no longer a free ascent. And we need to go and start at the bottom. So we'll be rehearsing this cliff. So a section of rock, 100 feet. And I'll be practicing it over and over, resting on the rope or falling on the rope, until one day I can do it all in one without falling. So there's times when I'll come up with multiple solutions to this cliff, and maybe one of them seems more powerful, meaning I'm going from a big hole to big reach, powerful strength. Oh, it takes a lot of strength. And then I have another sequence where I just use barely moving, kind of a hunt and peck, small steps, very careful, more static movement. And you'll be wondering, what's the best solution for me? And when the cliff is steep, there's a timer ticking, meaning you only have so much endurance. So even if I'm not moving, I'm just hanging in one spot on my hands, I've only got a couple minutes and I'm fatigued and I'm going to have to let go. So if I keep moving, that's going to help that timer, your endurance timer. So sometimes you'll be weighing out, oh, this takes less energy doing this solution. This one takes more energy, but the one that takes more energy takes less time because you're pulling and jumping. You're all, so wait a minute, do I want to go with the more secure feeling or the more powerful? If the more powerful seems like you're wasting energy, but you're actually using less time, you're all, well, that might be the solution for you. And so a lot of it is, like you said, you may come up with several solutions, but you're all, when it comes to game day, meaning the day when you're going to try and do this thing without falling on the rope, you're going to make that decision. Am I going to go with that powerful way or the more time consuming, secure way? It could be, you know, depending on your endurance, it could be just your state of mind. What do you feel more comfortable with? And it could be just, how do I feel today? Which way do I want to, you know, how am I going to go about this? And for me, that's the beautiful thing. You're not solving this. You're not trying to come up with this certain way that someone else did it. You know what I mean? Maybe you know someone else has done it, but you're going to come up with your own way. So your own solution. And this is the beautiful thing. And it, even though you'll be repeating a rock climb that has been done thousands of times, you'll really feel like you have a unique relationship with that piece of stone because you came up with your own solution. And that goes, even if, say, one of you guys is saying, well, Dave, look at this hold, or Dave, look at that hold, or do you see this thing here? No matter how much help I have, it's still this unique, intimate thing with that sequence that I choose in the end. And I feel like it's almost like a little relationship with yourself and with nature. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. And if we apply this analogy like to spiritual traditions, and all these different traditions are different paths, it just makes so much sense that we should have respect and honor for whichever path somebody else chooses to take, because that's what fits best for their own constitution, the way they are right now, all these different things. And I bet rock climbers don't, you know, castigate one another because somebody chose a different way up the rock, the way that people in different religions would do for choosing different spiritual paths.
We will, yes. And as humans, we do this. We do this, all this stuff. And that's why I see, you know, that human condition in the climbing, much like, you know, the first guys who used the ropes, or the first guys who did pendulums, or the first guys who did direct aid. If there's something that's going to open up freedom or facilitate safety, you know, speed up movement in climbing, it's going to get resistance, right? And I see this in the modern world. Anytime we want to, you know, people want more freedoms, or, you know, whatever it is, there is a big resistance out there. You know, it's not, I mean, it's not always with the conviction of, say, a devout religious follower, but we do. This is part of our human condition. We want to say, no, this is how we do it. You're going to do it different. That's got to be wrong or bad or cowardly or whatever. You're ruining it. You're ruining it by your different way. Now you can go twice as fast and climb twice as difficult. And, you know, so we need to recognize this, I think, in our lives and in every aspect. Do we really hate the kids' music, or are we not giving it a chance? You know?
Thank you. I want to make sure that we get to Jess. I know that she's got kids who are doing rock climbing. That's a little bit difficult for her to stomach watch. So what do you have?
Well, thank you for all of that. I found all of it really interesting on so many different levels. I've got a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 6-year-old, 3 boys. And we belong to a climbing gym in Maine. And so they're like in the past year have really gotten into it, and they're going for it, and they're awesome. I guess the issue is actually more with me. As a mom, I feel like I'm a really good supportive climbing mom for them, but not for myself. So like when I've tried it myself, I'm totally excited to do big hand holds and things I can reach. And then the moment there's like a little hand hold, or I have to release and only have like one point of, I freak out, and then I don't want to do it. And so I guess I'm just wondering advice, like, how do you move? And I think of it on a spiritual level as well. Like, how do you go from that comfortable place where you're doing something and you're doing something cool and it's good, but you kind of know that you got to take that next step and you just are terrified to do it.
Yeah, because we don't want to feel insecure.
Right.
You know, we don't. And so you can be all, I'm on a cliff, I'm doing great, because you feel secure, right? The good handholds, the good footholds. And then the moments it's, you know, and it'll be strenuous or a difficult thing to hold on, or maybe balancy. For me, a lot of times, you know, when it comes to standing on one foothold and making an entire movement without anything really solid to grab, this becomes so mental, you know what I mean? No amount of pull-ups can prepare me for that. It doesn't matter how strong you are, you need to stand on your foot and you need to stand in balance. And this will be you know, for me, it'll be this mental thing where I'll realize, dude, you need to just believe in that foothold and stand up. And yes, and even after, you know, 40 plus years of climbing, yeah, I don't like that moment. And I don't want to have so many moments of, yeah, I'm insecure, I'm standing all on one foot. If this foot slips, you know, I'm out of here like a trap door. Not like when you're grabbing two holds, you're all, oh, if one foot slips, I got another foothold and these two great handholds. Not really worried about one little slip of the boot. So yes, this is difficult. And no matter how much tolerance we build up, and it's not like, yeah, you're probably thinking, oh, Dave, when you're in that insecure position, you just bravely go to it. No. This is where I go, oh, okay, dude, time to game face, time to get serious. Yeah. Laser focus, maximum effort. You need to believe in this foothold and your boots, and you need to stand on it and see what happens, you know, and step into it. And with climbing, you know, there's fall trajectory analysis. So as you're lead climbing, obviously if I'm looking like you're saying, and you're all, I'm not going to fall, there's no way, then you're all, I don't really need to place protection. And then you'll get to a situation where you're all, oh, wow, this looks like I might fall. And you're all, okay, I need to get some protection, meaning, you know, connect the rope to the cliff. And where you find that, you'll go, okay, now what's going to happen if I fall in that spot that I think? And if you're all, well, then I'm going to fall and the rope's going to catch me and I'm going to swing over and, oh, slam into this feature on the cliff. You're all, ooh, that doesn't look good, you know? And if I can't protect this any better, I just won't go for it. You know, I'll just tail between the legs. No, I'm not doing it. I think I might fall. And if I do fall, I'm going to probably get hurt. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And there'll be other situations where I'm looking at the cliff and I'm all, oh, there's no way I can do this. It's impossible. There's no way. But then I'll get the protection and I'll go, well, what's going to happen if I fall? And I'm going to fall and swing. And even if I swing upside down, the rope's going to catch me. I'm not going to hit anything. And you're all, oh man, I have to go for it.
Right.
Got to go up there. Even though I know I'm going to fall, I know that the consequences are taken care of. So then I have to go for it. So as you get, you know, more and more, and if I assume that you're just like top roping with overhead protection.
Yeah.
So in those situations, when I'm in those, I'll go, oh, this is a precarious moment. This is when I'll look down and I'll check, make sure that knot is still connected to my harness. And a lot of times I'll look at the belayer and I'll say, okay, I'm going for it. You got me? Yeah. And you'll hear a response. Yeah, you're good. I'm with you. And just, so go through those safety connections, you know, verify. Because I'll always tell my students, if you're up on the cliff and you're scared, don't just think it's a mental thing and, oh, I need to just override this. No, check, make sure there isn't anything real. Meaning look and make sure that knot is still tied tightly to your harness. Talk to your belayer, make sure you have that other person is aware and awake. And then a lot of times I'll be all, okay, now I'm ready to go for it. right?
Yeah.
I verified I am still tied in, my belayer is still with me, and go for it. But it's a beautiful part of the climbs is to, you know, embrace that moment of security, but you need to validate that it's, that it is, the situation is in control and that the fall consequences aren't going to result in damage, because it would be insane to just go, I might fall, and if I do fall, I'm going to get hurt. Well, don't do that. So yeah, don't go for that.
Next week, we have the theme of Promethean foresight. And I'm working on a presenter for it. Diana might know this person. The one after that is going to be given by David Sanders on training the mind. And he's going to use the tradition of AI, artificial intelligence. So when that started becoming a tradition, I don't really know. I'm really looking forward to hearing that one. And then Jess, who's joining us right now, is a healer, and she's going to give us the next week's presentation on magnetizing ourselves. So we have a lot of good stuff to look forward to. And oh man, the great thing we've been doing today. So before I, have us finish David's answer to Jess's question and any other questions people want to stay on for, let me ask if there's somebody who'd like to give Dave a vote of thanks for his presentation, and then lively entertainment of questions and conversation after that.
Wonderful. I didn't really, it gives me a whole new vision of climbing, not just rocks, but our life, and how to do that with a sense of choice and an adventure, and looking at the cost consequences. And you were entertaining and I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I need to go. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. So anybody who'd like to stay on, you're welcome to do. We'll stay on for a few more minutes.
Yeah. And so what I was saying is, what I'll tell, for you with that moment of insecurity, what I see with my students, the first thing, of course, is to get them on the cliff, and then they call for tension and present the weight to the rope. So you go, okay, I'm stopping, the rope goes tight, and you sit on the rope. And then okay, I can trust the rope and come down. Now the second, and that's one of your first big breakthroughs, is learning to trust that safety system. Now the second big breakthrough is to not be waiting on the rope. You're trying to do the climb, and then you fail. You fall off the cliff, and without deciding, the rope catches you. And that's the second so-called, leap of faith, is to, and this is a constant thing for the beginner and the grandmaster alike. Like I said, when I'm going out and rehearsing these climbs, so we'll go out and practicing them. And so a lot of times I'll go up to the cliff and I know I'm not going to be able to do it. So it's almost more like a day of studying, and I'm just going to try this and try that, see what works. And then when I feel like I've understood it enough that I'm going to try and climb it from the bottom to the top without falling, it's kind of game day, and you'll get the butterflies. And even though I've been climbing for, decades, and I've taken hundreds of falls, sometimes on the day, it's really helpful for me to go up there and try this climb, and actually try, not go, oh, tension, hold me, or clip and hang, but keep trying and fall off the cliff, trying to stay on the cliff. And then the rope catches me, and boom, for the rest of the day, I can kind of face the cliff with a more clear mind. Okay, that happened. That's what happens when you fall. I'm okay. And so it's a breakthrough thing that you kind of need to reestablish throughout. And anytime you're going into a situation like a climb where you're not going to feel secure, maybe you're going to get super tired on it. It's, it's your threshold, at the threshold of your ability. and remember, that doesn't have to be the threshold of your ability. If it's in your mind, this is difficult, then it's difficult. And you're going to need to go there. And so, you know, my advice is get into those things, those situations where you're out of balance or insecure, you know, check your knots good, talk to your belayer and go for it. And don't quit and go, oh, I'm falling, I better let go and fall securely on the rope. No, go for it. Like, try and do it and just believe the rope's going to catch you. Obviously, you know that because you've already, you know, before sat on the rope and gotten lowered down. You know, you can go, oh, tension, I want to quit, and you can come down. And that breakthrough of actually trying to climb and then falling onto the rope is a big thing when you're learning and all throughout your practice of climbing, to just reestablish that in your mind. I can try as hard as I can and fail, and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But and as far as your kids go, grill them on the connections, meaning when you connect into the rope, double checking the knot where you're tied in, and just being super vigilant about that. Those are the whole the main thing. And that's why people say, oh, climbing in the gym, that's not like being in the outdoors. But I say, hey, you guys, you're tying knots and you're catching each other on the rope. That's a super important part of climbing. And if the more repetitions you do of that, tying into that knot, double checking it with the partner, belaying, come down, the more repetitions, the better.
Yeah.
And if you can just focus on that. And then the other thing is, you know, as a parent watching over this, remember, you're going to catch mistakes in that, oh, that knot's not finished. It's not a big deal. That's what the safety check is about. Because I see this with a lot of times, a person will mistie their knot and then their partner, oh, that knot's not right. Oh, and they make a big deal like someone could have died. And you're all, no, that's why we do a safety check. And you did a safety check and you caught the mistake. Now you're going to fix it. Dude, it's not a big deal. It's why we do it. It's not, oh, you made a mistake. No, you didn't. We caught it. So it's not a mistake. And so, you know, not to be irreverent about the safety, but don't make it a super big deal, right? When we see these mistakes, we just correct them. And it's part of the safety check. It's why we have a safety check. You know, veterans and beginners alike are bound to, you know, make these small errors. And if we're all watching, then we catch them and it's no big deal.
Cool. Thank you.
And don't worry about your kids. They're probably not going to get obsessed like me and waste their entire life doing it.
Dave, do you really feel as if you've wasted an entire life when you've gained a life full of wisdom that you were able to convey to all the rest of us? You know, supposedly you were just talking about rock climbing techniques, and yet you were really giving us some very philosophical life lessons.
Yeah. And I try and remember that when I'm in whatever more domestic situations in my life, and just, you know, and we get frustrated and upset and whatever, things aren't going right. And I'll have to remind myself, dude, what if we were on a cliff right now? Would you be acting this way? And the answer usually is no, Griff. You'd be solid and you'd be thinking clearly. So, you know, yeah, may as well do that right now. Maintain that. So I think you can apply these lessons to everything in life.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, this has been just such so much fun learning life philosophy. What a wonderful, wonderful way to do it. I just can't thank you enough for sharing this with people here at Gems from the Wisdom Traditions. This is amazing.
Super cool. Yeah, anytime, Renee, anytime.
Thank you so much. Aloha, everyone.